Okay. Oh, so maybe like do the purple stickers for like where we're starting, where we're going? Okay.
The party girls have been given the opportunity to choose our next stop from a number of socially significant locations.
I would like to go to Charleston, South Carolina. There's the recent debate with the Confederate flag and also the shooting at Mother Emanuel Church.
I want to go down to Pulse.
I think that would be so interesting.
And very relevant right now.
I really do care about LGBT issues. People are still facing prejudice and judgment.
There's also a Muslim shooter, so we could talk about Islamophobia and gun violence.
They will ultimately have to consider the platform they've been given as a group and what is collectively important to them on a personal level.
I think it's important to talk about Jacksonville because like that would be such a personal experience if we were able to go there and meet the parents of this teenager who was shot.
That's my number one too.
I mean, it's such a huge opportunity.
Yeah.
Oh man, just
and it's so intimate.
It really is.
I think it's really valuable. They have made their decision due in large part to recent events and a recent encounter.
You see that?
Whoa. The big yellow billboard.
Oh my God, that's absolutely ridiculous.
I think it's disgusting.
Yeah, I think it's heartless. They didn't put any like real thought into it. They just like, let's just use
No,
this.
they put thought into it.
No, I think they did.
What I would want it to mean is that Black people should arm themselves to protect themselves. But no, that's not what it meant, and I knew that's not what it meant. I was just so disgusted.
It's unfortunate that people are making like a joke out of the Black Lives Matter movement and use that as a way to make fun of people who really just only want Black people to be seen as human.
I do think it's like an offensive side.
It is discrediting Black Lives Matter.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Using that to say that access to guns is more important.
People think there's like this always imminent threat, and that if that one time happens.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people also use guns to defend their religion. They say like without the Second Amendment, you can't defend the First. Having guns is their right to defend their right to believe whatever they want and practice their faith and live their lives. Like they feel like that weapon is an integral part of their lives.
Regardless, it's tasteless. Yeah.
At the request of the party girls, we arrive at the home of slain teen Jordan Davis to meet with his father.
I remember a month, I think, before his death, and he was crying. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "Dad," he said, "I just get this feeling I don't think I'm going to make it." You know, he had been looking at what happened with Trayvon Martin and police shootings, and I said, "No, you're going to be all right." Then we were having Thanksgiving dinner here, and for the first time he volunteered to say the prayer. And I thought he would say something funny, you know, kids do, but when he started praying for people and being serious about his prayer and everything and talking to God. And then the next day was Black Friday, 2012. Out of nowhere, this guy drives up next to the car's blasting their music, you know, like teenagers do. And the guy says, you know, "Turn your music down." And he, you know, hollers at the kids, and the kids are like, "Well, you know, we don't have to turn our music down. Who are you?" So because the kids didn't obey him, he decided that he was gonna go in his glove compartment, pull out his gun, and he started shooting into the car. Shot 3 bullets that killed Jordan. As the car backed away and tried to get away from him, he continued to shoot at the car, trying to kill all of the 4 kids that were in the car. I never forget seeing my son with his eyes closed. Something that sticks with you. I remember the times where if it's a school night, I said, "Jordan, make sure that you come home at 10:30. So at 10:29, I would hear keys in the door. And here we are 3.5 years later. You know, sometimes I hear keys in the door, and I lean over and I look at the door, and it doesn't open. So these people that you hear about that are shooting people, even the police that are shooting people, they're not valuing life. You don't have to shoot and kill people. You want to shoot and kill people. Most of the time, the person that was shot and killed was what? Unarmed, right? Yeah, I remember Renisha McBride in Detroit. It's not just men, it's women too. you know.
Do you think it could be not that it's necessarily gotten worse or more frequent, but just that it's being filmed now, or now that we have social media and people are able to spread the word quicker, I guess?
I think the attitudes has changed from the 60s and 70s. See, before women were quiet. Women are protesting now. They're leading protests. The Constitution says African American slaves were 3/5 of a human being. Well, it's still on the books. That feeling has not changed. I mean, I talked to Sabrina Fulton about George Zimmerman bragging about shooting an unarmed Trayvon Martin. These people that are policing these areas, they can go have a beer once they shoot you down in the street. I do many panels with Mike Brown in St. Louis. You should hear the conversations that's breaking his heart. The biggest conversation is not that his son got shot, is that his son was lying in front of him in the street for 4.5 hours. That was the most disgraceful act that I have seen since I've been born. A lot of people misunderstand Black Lives Matter. We're not saying that white lives don't matter. But we see an unarmed black human being being shot down on a daily basis. We have to say Black Lives Matter.
Recently, the state of Florida passed Senate Bill 344, which was going to give the prosecution the responsibility of proving that the stand your ground law was necessary even before trial. Do you think if that was applicable in the case of Jordan, if it would have turned out the same way?
Stand your ground almost got Michael Dunn off. As long as you feared for your life, then you were able to shoot and possibly kill that person with impunity. You don't even have to go to trial. Your lawyer goes in front of a judge. The judge looks at that and says, I think that you acted reasonably, that you did fear for your life. Then it doesn't go to court. Many of the states, like California, think that they don't have a stand your ground statute. They just embed it in the self-defense laws. And more than not, if you are a black person shooting a white person, you will not get stand your ground. Because in this country, they don't believe a black man fears a white person, but they believe a white person fears a black person. Look at the movies. If you look at TV, if there's a drug dealer, African Americans. If there's prostitution, African American women or Latinas. Well, guess what? There's a segment of society that sees that, and they think it's reality. The media is doing the same thing to Muslim Americans today.
What would we be able to do to kind of keep this legacy alive?
We want each and every one of you now, you're activists. I want to hear about the great things you're doing, and just think of the things that you can create. I really need you guys to carry on this work. It's Jordan's room.
I've always seen importance in the Black Lives Matter movement, but I think that sharing such a direct experience with Mr. Davis helped me realize that this movement affects me every day, affects my dad and brother every day, and my future sons.
Wanting to make sure that these young women took a piece of Jordan with them, Mr. Davis invited them to the site where Jordan was last alive.
It's hard to be a black father in America and have people understand your hurt and your pain. They think fathers are removed from their children. You know, we're here, we're hurting too.
I came away from meeting Mr. Davis with a lot of new insight. He actually made me feel bad about not going to some of the protests. I should actually be out doing something, because it does affect me. It affects the way people look at me. It affects the way people look at my family. I knew if this happened to somebody that I loved, I would want someone out there speaking on their behalf. And there's no reason that I can't go out and speak on someone else's behalf.
Sometimes we hear all of these stories and incidents, and we have to always remember that there are people behind them and that we should never let people become just another statistic.